It's true. Sometimes teams that aren't even that good can make the Super Bowl. This is a video on the 10 worst to make it that far. So what exactly do I mean by the 10 worst Super Bowl teams? Well, I'm not looking for the worst performances. I'm looking for the worst teams to get there by point differential. How many points they scored minus how many they added, boom, there's your differential. This leaves off some surprising teams like the 2006 Chicago Bears, who actually had the 30th highest point differential of any Super Bowl team going into 2025. But the teams at the bottom are pretty endearing to me. Thanks for stopping by. Let's have a good time and cherish the topsy-turvy magic of the 10 worst teams to make the Super Bowl. At 10th, we have a team many of you do not like, the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs. For casual fans, why is that? They have an all-time great quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, an all-time great head coach in Andy Reid, an all-time great tight end in Travis Kelce, as well as defensive tackle Chris Jones, who was pretty damn special himself. Two variables. One, fatigue. They were the defending champs for the last two Super Bowls. Second, it was how they got there this time. The 15-2 record hides the Chiefs' point differential of plus 59. This was a group of witches that summoned freak wins out of thin air. Give you some examples. Week 1 versus Baltimore, they won when Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely couldn't get 2 feet in on a game-tying touchdown at the end of regulation. Week 2 for Cincinnati, a defensive pass interference flag that everyone hated but was the right call helped them hit a walk-off field goal. Week 3 at Atlanta, they got a late 4th and 1 stop at their own 13. Week 10, they block a game-winning Broncos kick as time expires to steal the game 16-14. Week 13, the Raiders are looking to set up a game-winning field goal in Chiefs territory, but before they can get closer, the center snaps the ball too early and the Chiefs recover to win 19-17. Week 14, they beat the Chargers on a walk-off field goal that doinks off the upright and goes in. On a whole, the Chiefs won 11 one-score games in 2024. That's why a lot of people hated them, and that's why after some time I admire how they were the worst team to win 15 games by far. Officiating is the subject of controversy in their divisional round win over the Texans, as it often is on the whole year. It's there in a close AFC title win over their non-division rivals, the Buffalo Bills. But listen, you can't beat championship experience, and after all, this is Kansas City's third straight Super Bowl appearance. And tune in because they have a chance to become the first NFL team to win 3 Super Bowls in a row, or what they call the three-peat. For the second time in 3 years, their opponent is the Philadelphia Eagles, and this time the Eagles destroy the Chiefs 40-22 in a game that wasn't even nearly as close as the final score indicated. Mahomes was sacked a career-high 6 times and turned the pigskin over 3 times, one of which was a pick 6. Also, he didn't throw a single touchdown pass until the Chiefs already trailed 34-0. For a lot of people, it was like Christmas to see the Chiefs finally lose on the biggest stage the way they did and regress the way they had the year after. For me, I was really looking forward to seeing if they could actually complete the fabled three-peat. Kansas City may have not been the most efficient team in 2024, but they pissed a lot of people off, and I appreciate stuff like that because it makes them more fascinating to look back on. So, I lied. The 2014 Chiefs were tied for 9th with another team. That would be the 2015 Denver Broncos. Their plus 59 differential comes from a hideous offense that sees 1,000-yard receivers Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders do all they can to make it look pretty. But Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning is putting up the most disgusting numbers of his illustrious career. In Week 10 against the Chiefs, Manning broke the all-time passing yardage record, gets a standing ovation, then threw 4 interceptions, completing one more pass to his teammates than he did to his opponents, resulting in his benching. But this Broncos team defies quarterback play with a defense known as the no-fly zone. It's widely considered one of the sport's very best. Legends like Von Miller, Chris Harris Jr., Aqib Talib, TJ Ward, DeMarcus Ware, countless others propel the league's top unit in yards allowed. Backup QB Brock Osweiler and back CJ Anderson both helped secure a key overtime victory over the then undefeated Patriots in Week 12 that would help them land the AFC 1 seed at 12-4. By that time, the Broncos re-established Manning as the starter after his injuries healed up. The Broncos pulled off close victories against the Steelers and then the Patriots in the final ever Peyton Manning-Tom Brady matchup. The last player to catch a touchdown pass from Peyton Manning, Owen Daniels, twice in the AFC title. This means none in the Super Bowl against the Panthers, but thanks to 2.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles from the game's MVP, Von Miller, none were needed in a 2-score victory that gave Denver its 3rd Super Bowl title. The Broncos overcame anemic quarterback play all season, rallying around an anthropomorphic fossil that for multiple decades had to burden the weight of carrying his teams to the playoffs with pass-heavy seasons. Now, it was the team around him that carried him to one last Lombardi trophy. At number 8, we have a Super Bowl team that was around before Donkey Kong even existed, the 1980 Oakland Raiders with a point differential of plus 58. This team faced internal distractions when owner Al Davis announced he wanted to move the team to Los Angeles. The league unanimously voted against such a move, then Davis gave them the middle finger and moved the team 2 years later anyway. Attendance numbers plummeted and Oakland got off to a 2-3 start. But there was a calm after the storm when the Raiders sailed to finish with an 11-5 record, finishing as a wildcard team with signs of greatness. On top of a dominant run defense, they generated 52 takeaways, a mark bested by only 12 teams since the league's 1970 merger. Think that season's Defensive Player of the Year, corner Lester Hayes, as his league-leading 13 interceptions are the NFL's single-season record post-merger and only trail the great Night Train Lane from 1952 for all time. On offense, Jim Plunkett, a 33-year-old veteran with very little success as a starter elsewhere, was inserted as quarterback in a Week 4 blowout where he threw 5 picks. Following that, however, Plunkett finished with very solid numbers to lead the Raiders to that 9-2 finish. The effective run game featured a duo of Pro Bowler Kenny King joined by fullback Mark Van Agen at the tail end of a terrific prime. That too was the case for Hall of Fame receiver Cliff Branch. After blasting the Houston Oilers and former Hall of Fame Raiders quarterback Ken Stabler in the wildcard round, the Raiders head to Cleveland to face a very good Browns team in the clutch. I'm a Cleveland native, love living in Cleveland. Holy hell, the winters here are brutal, and at 2 degrees Fahrenheit with a wind chill of minus 20, this particular day makes for one of the coldest playoff games to ever exist. The underdog Raiders and their defense, though, come prepared, shutting down league MVP Brian Sipe to the magnificent tune of 3 picks, which includes a game-winning last-second snag in the end zone. Following 2 crappy performances against tough teams rises the legend of Jim Plunkett. Again, as underdogs in the AFC title to the rival Chargers, the Raiders race to a 28-7 lead and hold on to win 34-27 to make it back to the Super Bowl, where they once again enter as underdogs to the NFC representative, the Eagles. They drowned Philadelphia like sins in a baptistry for the franchise's 2nd Super Bowl win, and Plunkett is largely to thank. In those last 2 playoff games, Plunkett threw for 522 yards on just 39 attempts for 5 touchdowns and a passer rating of 151.4. In the process, he earned a well-deserved Super Bowl MVP in the final game to complete a long journey from failed first overall pick to a franchise icon. Significant as well was Hall of Fame coach Tom Flores, the first minority head coach in NFL history to win a Super Bowl. Damn impressive season for a team about to change locations. At number 7, with a point differential of plus 54, we have the 2012 Baltimore Ravens. Their 10-6 record this year is good enough to secure the AFC North Division title. However, this occurred after sliding to said record following a 9-2 start. After reaching 9-4, they fired their offensive play caller, who even at the time said it was a good move. And here's why. Baltimore is coming off 4 very good seasons of consecutive playoff appearances that include 2 spots in the AFC title, but in the last year of legendary Cleveland Browns quarterback Joe Flacco's rookie contract, the offense appears unfocused, and Flacco isn't exactly reaching the potential they saw when they took him in the first round in 2008. The interim OC is the man of many faces, Jim Caldwell, who despite the lackluster finish to the regular season, oversees an all-time playoff run from guys like receiver Anquan Bolden and, well, Joe Flacco. It's also the final year with beloved franchise defenders Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, so in their final home game as Ravens, they destroy the Colts, who used to play in Baltimore, to move on to the divisional round. Facing a heavily favored Peyton Manning-led Broncos team with a dominant offense and dominant defense, the Ravens stunned the mile-high crowd by staying close with them all game. Trailing by 7, the Ravens faced a 3rd and short with 41 seconds left and no timeouts at their own 30-yard line. Needing a miracle to tie, Joe Flacco gets it after uncorking a prayer to the heavens for the late Jacoby Jones, rest in peace. The Broncos secondary horribly misplays the ball, allowing Jones to catch it and go into the end zone untouched. In overtime, Flacco gets away with 2 passes that were nearly picked on the same drive. And on the Ravens defense's next drive, they intercept Manning to set up the game-winning double overtime field goal from 47 yards from this redacted kicker. 38-35 is the final score. For the second straight year, the Ravens book an AFC title trip to New England, and though the previous matchup ended in heartbreak, this one ends in a Baltimore ass-kicking of the Tom Brady Patriots. Book a trip to the Super Bowl, otherwise known as the Harbaugh Bowl, between brothers John of the Ravens and Jim of the 49ers. The Ravens already made 2 of the 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time look mortal in back-to-back weeks, and they make an excellent 49ers offense appear the same early by racing to a 28-6 third-quarter lead. Then the power literally went out at the Superdome to delay the game for 35 minutes. And after a while, the Ravens now held a 34-29 lead, with the 49ers offense having walked inside the Baltimore 10 with 2 minutes remaining. But a last-second defensive stand turned the ball over on downs. The Ravens took an intentional safety to chew off more clock, and that was that. It's the second Lombardi Trophy in the history of the Ravens, who are the first team in 6 tries to beat San Francisco in a Super Bowl. Flacco, the game's MVP, is part of a 4-way tie, with his 11 touchdown passes in the 2012 postseason equaling an NFL record. It cemented him as a Baltimore sports legend and helped him break the bank in the offseason. I don't believe I've seen a team fire an offensive coordinator and immediately win it all in the same season. But don't feel too bad for Cam Cameron. The Ravens make sure to send him a Super Bowl ring as well, and they all lived happily ever after. Not so much for the 6th worst Super Bowl team in point differential at plus 51, the 1986 Denver Broncos. A season removed from becoming the first 11-5 team to miss the playoffs, the Broncos go 11-5 again, and this time that's good enough to clinch the AFC West. The team's defense isn't too bad and is home to a few outstanding players, but that team is seen as a massive carry job by Hall of Fame quarterback and legendary New York Yankee John Elway, a gifted dual threat with the Saturn V for an arm. A quarterback as talented as Elway was not the right fit for the run-heavy background of Dan Reeves, who never let Elway truly rip it until the 4th quarter when the team had no other choice. Conveniently, this did etch Elway as one of the game's great clutch quarterbacks, though. Elway led the Donkeys to a close win over the Patriots in the divisional round, then traveled to Cleveland to face the top seed Browns in the AFC title. Elway orchestrated a 15-play, game-tying sequence that came to be known in football lore as the drive. It just might be the best clutch drive the NFL will ever see, more so after the Broncos go on to win in overtime by a field goal to clinch their 2nd Super Bowl appearance. Unfortunately for Denver, they ran into a minefield courtesy of the '86 Giants, one of the NFL's all-time great teams. To get an idea of how lopsided this game was, put it this way. John Elway was the Broncos' leading rusher. His yardage on the ground, 27. For their first 4 Super Bowl appearances, the Broncos were mounted on a wall in blowout fashion. This was just the first time one of those involved Elway, and that will happen twice more. In a way, these losses helped him build a Hall of Fame case, as the reason they got that far was because of their superhero quarterback. These Broncos teams just could not match the talent from the NFC on the biggest stage. Not yet, anyway. Elway was a rare QB that refused to play for the team that drafted him. At number 5 on our list of the worst Super Bowl teams, we have another one of those quarterbacks in Eli Manning, the leader of the 2007 New York Giants, and their point differential of plus 22. If you're a casual fan but know figures like Eli and head coach Tom Coughlin, it may shock you to learn there were actual concerns over if they were good enough to make a playoff run. Way to prove those experts right with an 0-2 start on the season, or so it seemed. Instead, New York won 10 of the remaining 14 games behind a terrific run game and a defense inside the top 5 in yards per drive allowed to finish 10-6 and clinch a wildcard spot. For Eli, it was a massive up and down season. Down sees moments like Week 12 against the Vikings, where he threw 3 interceptions returned for touchdowns, tied for the NFL single-game record. Up is in a Week 17 game against the 15-0 Patriots, looking to become the first team to reach a perfect 16-0. They will, but the Giants, Eli especially, fought their asses off to make New England earn every point they could. It's a 38-35 defeat, but the Giants are battle-tested for what will be the most impressive Super Bowl run in NFL history. You'd have a hard time noticing this was the Giants' 3rd straight trip to the playoffs because they were road underdogs in the opening round to the Buccaneers, and it was a relatively easy win for the Giants. To the divisional round, facing a heavily favored 13-win Cowboys team that swept the Big Blue in the regular season. Here, the Giants' defense put the league's 2nd-best scoring team in a box without any air holes, coming away with a stone-cold stunner after a last-second pick in the end zone from defensive back R.W. McQuarters, who will have 3 of those this playoff run. In a freezing NFC title game against a 13-win Packers team, it was expected the Giants would get steamrolled. They did not. As time expired in regulation, kicker Lawrence Tynes, who missed 1 kick earlier in the quarter, shanked the game-winning 36-yarder that would have sent the Giants to the Super Bowl. But on the 2nd play of overtime, Corey Webster, an underrated defensive back in the Jersey area, intercepted what would turn out to be the last pass of Brett Favre's Packers career. Tynes, ready to face the wrath of New York sports fans for years to come, instead went from scapegoat to goat by making the 47-yard kick to send the Giants to their first Super Bowl appearance in 7 years. There, they met that same Patriots team that gave a heart attack in Week 17. New England was heavily favored, but noticeably had a hard time putting away a neutered Chargers team that intercepted league MVP Tom Brady 3 times in the AFC Championship. Eli on the last chance drive nearly threw a game-ending interception to corner Asante Samuel, but didn't. The next play, Manning escaped what looked like a surefire sack, bought time, and fired a devoted prayer to receiver David Tyree. Tyree jams the ball to his helmet and the play goes down as potentially the greatest catch in a league that has been around since 1920. 4 plays later, receiver Plaxico Burress, fresh off an absurd 151-yard performance in Green Bay, caught the game-winning pass from Eli in the end zone, and the Giants' defense forced a turnover on downs to win the team's 3rd Super Bowl trophy. The greatest upset in any post-merger game, perhaps all NFL history in general, established Eli as a contending force not unlike his older brother Peyton. Just as well, it was the perfect send-off for defensive end Michael Strahan, retiring on top by venturing to have a successful career as a media personality. The 4th worst Super Bowl team is the 2003 Carolina Panthers, just a sliver worse than the 2007 Giants with a point differential of +21. Their playoff run, 2 years removed from a 1-15 season, should have been impossible. But in 2002, they improved to 7 wins under new head coach John Fox, then went 11-5 in 2003 to secure their 2nd ever playoff appearance. It's done on the strength of 9 one-score wins, earning them the Cardiac Cats nickname. The source? The clutch play of quarterback Jake Delhomme, an undrafted free agent who spent time as an NFL Europe legend before playing as a backup in New Orleans before finding his way in Charlotte in 2003. Off the bench in Week 1, Delhomme gets the party going with a game-winning touchdown over the Jaguars, and he'll have many more with a league-best 5 fourth-quarter comebacks and 7 game-winning drives. His offense has plenty of muscle with supreme 1,400-yard rusher Stephen Davis and the dominant receiving tandem of Steve Smith Sr. and Musid Mohammed. But all those close wins can't be sustainable for a deep playoff run, can it? It isn't in the wildcard round against the Cowboys, as the Panthers can't squeak out a close win. They'll have to settle for an extremely easy 29-10 win instead. To the next round against the 2-seed Rams, who are, as you probably deduced, large favorites. But it's St. Louis that needs an 11-point miracle comeback in the final 2.5 minutes to send this game to overtime. The first extra credit drives end in missed game-winning field goals from both sides, and the Panthers go 3-and-out on their next drive. The Rams storm to the Carolina 38 and look set to kick a game-winning field goal, but before they can inch closer, Mark Bulger's pass intended for Torrey Holt is instead picked off by Ricky Manning. Carolina's chance to take the upset win extends into the second overtime, one of 6 playoff games to ever get that far. Delhomme on 3rd and 14 fires a strike to Steve Smith Sr., who speeds past every Ram on the field for 69 yards and a game-winning 6-point play. Now in the NFC title, the Panthers have to get past the Eagles team, making its 3rd straight NFC title appearance. Remember Ricky Manning, the corner who saved the Rams game with his interception? Brace yourselves, he goes from 1 pick last week to 3 this week off Eagles soup enthusiast and quarterback Donovan McNabb. It's the catalyst in an ugly 14-3 win to book Carolina's first trip to the Super Bowl. The matchup is against the Patriots, and though it goes back and forth in a wild game with 37 combined fourth-quarter points, it is the Panthers that must bear witness to a game-ending field goal late after a not-so-stellar kickoff from the otherwise really good John Casey. Tough break, with Jake Delhomme playing out of his mind and Steve Smith Sr. racking up what was then the second highest receiving yardage total in a single postseason. But like all the other teams on this list, this Panthers team that looked like a fluke in the regular season with non-stop close wins really found their footing in the playoffs, and that's all you can ask for as a fan. Having fun? Hope so. We have 3 teams left, and at number 3 of the worst Super Bowl teams with a point differential of plus 14 is the 1979 Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are in deep trouble midseason with a 5-6 record, but by winning 4 of their last 5 games, their 9-7 record earns them a division crown in a lousy NFC West. Granted, it's their 7th straight division crown. See, the Rams of the 70s are a powerhouse with 4 NFC title appearances and soon to be their 5th. What's the secret? That's former 4th-round quarterback Vince Ferragamo, who goes 4-1 in the final 5-game stretch as he puts up, his numbers were pretty bad in this stretch, but hey, the team responded well, so let's go with that angle anyway. But in the case we don't, they also had the league's best back by yards per attempt in Wendell Tyler. Don't underestimate that defense, though. They had 2 unrelated great players that go by the name of Jay Youngblood, Hall of Fame pass rusher Jack Youngblood, and stud linebacker Jim Youngblood. What endears me to the 79 Rams is that they're doing this with a head coach that wasn't even their first option when the help wanted sign was installed. Ray Malavasi was here in the first place because they fired George Allen in the 1978 preseason before Allen could coach a single game of his second stint in Los Angeles. But ownership was reportedly weary of Malavasi. Maybe they just couldn't pronounce his name. But it's cited that if the Rams didn't make the Super Bowl in 79, they would fire him for George Allen. Well, that didn't happen. Our heroes shocked the top seed Cowboys in the divisional round on a game-winning touchdown from Ferragamo to Billy Waddy, whose name sounds like baby talk. But the next week, the Rams defense treated the host Bucks like babies in the NFC title by a score of 9-0 in what has to be the only time a 9-win team was favored in a conference title. More importantly, not only is it the team's first NFC title win and Super Bowl trip, they became the first 9-win team to ever make the Vince Lombardi Classic. Their effort against the Dynasty Steelers was commendable, even taking a 19-17 lead to the fourth quarter. Sure, that crumbled into a 2-score defeat after they gave up 14 unanswered points, but the 79 Rams set a lofty standard for teams with mediocre records to try and surpass, a quest our last 2 teams will no doubt make very interesting. At long last, I have an excuse to talk about the second worst Super Bowl team by point differential, the 2008 Arizona Cardinals. As one of the NFL's oldest franchises, it's hard being a fan. Ranging from 1948 all the way to 2007, the Arizona Cardinals made just 6 playoff appearances, and their playoff win total was 1. Sad as they may appear, these Cardinals deserve our love and attention too, and it helps when the 2008 squad makes one of the NFL's great Cinderella runs. The regular season Cardinals are a bit bad, however. Their point differential might as well be a wedding invitation, as it is a +1. The team went 9-7 in 2008, but I can tell you the source of 6 of those wins: the NFC West. Arizona swept the worst division in football at the time. The record of their 3 divisional buddies? 13 wins, 35 losses. Few were buying this team's legitimacy, especially when they flopped a 7-3 start to lose 4 of their last 6 and looked like they were playing flag football against good teams. Sorry for being harsh, let's do less of that. This is the team's second playoff spot since 1983, so besides their division, what's got them ending their playoff drought? 2 things: a defense that's excellent in creating takeaways, and then there's the astonishingly good passing attack. Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, after years of struggling to replicate his prime years with the Rams, found his groove again once his ability to grip the ball came back. He played exceptional in 2008 with nearly 4,600 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 96.9. The Cardinals became the 5th and most recent team to field not 1, not 2, but 3 1,000-yard receivers on the same team at the same time. First team All-Pro and future Hall of Famer Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Boldin, hey, we saw him earlier, and he also has borderline Hall of Fame numbers, and fantastic wide receiver 3, Steve Breston. They'll need every last ounce of that passing game. Although rookie back Tim Hightower has a nose for the end zone, the team's league worst run game smells awful. While the defense, as we said, created a lot of takeaways, no one in that group generated more than 5 sacks on the season. Despite these deficiencies, they sparked at the perfect time. In the first home playoff game as a member of the state of Arizona, the Cards held on to win an actual postseason contest, signifying the start of a sensational playoff run for both Kurt Warner and especially Larry Fitzgerald. Need proof? The divisional round at Carolina. Anquan Boldin is out with a hamstring injury, but look at the 34-14 final score in favor of the Cardinals and you'd never be able to tell. The 20-point margin of victory is the largest in playoff history by a team that was a double-digit underdog. Warner and Fitzgerald put up Herculean efforts, and the defense made Jake Delhomme turn the ball over 6 times on Delhomme's 33rd birthday. Sorry, Jake. Blame your parents. The Cards nearly blew a 24-6 lead in the NFC Championship to the heavily favored visiting Eagles. But hold on, I did not say they lost. Warner and Fitzgerald took Arizona on a 7.5-minute game-winning touchdown drive concluded by a Tim Hightower dump-off for the 8-yard 6-pointer. A defensive stop took them from their first ever conference title appearance to their first ever Super Bowl appearance, thereby making them the first 9-win team since the '79 Rams to get that far. Again, they were heavy underdogs to a Steelers team whose defense allowed less yards per play that year than any other 21st century team to this very day. But even with what for most teams would be a death blow of a 100-yard pick 6 off Warner at the end of the first half, the Cardinals took the lead late in the fourth on a 64-yard touchdown from Warner to a speedy Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald set a then record for catches in a postseason and still has the receiving yardage record by a very wide margin. Ultimately, the Cardinals lost in heartbreaking fashion by the slightest of finger grips and the tiniest of toe taps, but as 6.5 underdogs in the game they lost by 4, they beat the cover. So even when they lose it all, the 2008 Cardinals still find a way to win. And now, the worst Super Bowl team of all time by point differential. Remember the 2007 New York Giants? This team parallels them in a few ways, because they are the 2011 New York Giants. This team finished with a point differential of -6. This is the only team to win a Super Bowl with a negative point differential. This is the only team to get to a Super Bowl with a negative point differential. And this is the only team to throw a Super Bowl parade with 9 regular season wins. They almost didn't get here after spilling a 6-2 start on the floor with 4 straight losses. But a win against the Jets and a sweep of the Dallas Cowboys is enough to grab, you guessed it, the division title of a pretty lame NFC East. We can see Eli Manning has undergone serious character development in this latest season of the New York Giants. 2007 was an inefficient, turnover-heavy season. 2011 is a complete carry job on a team with a far worse run game, far worse offensive line, and in the case of the regular season, a far worse defense. Eli came dangerously close to throwing for 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns in a Pro Bowl season where he had a league-leading 5 fourth-quarter comebacks blended with 6 game-winning drives, also a league leader. On offense is All-Pro receiver Victor Cruz, an undrafted free agent who registered 0 catches in his rookie season. In year number 2, 83 catches, 9 touchdowns, and 1,536 yards. Cruz, who has an incredible touchdown dance, forms a dynamic duo with fellow 1,000-yard receiver Hakeem Nicks. On defense, pass rusher Jason Pierre-Paul breaks out in year 2 with 16.5 sacks, collecting first-team All-Pro honors and forming a pass-rushing duo of his own with Giants legend O.C. Umenyiora. Those two and Corey Webster carry a pretty not-so-good defense, but one that remembers its identity come playoff time, the exact time for that thought to occur. Fun fact about the wildcard game against the Falcons, this will be the only home playoff win of the Eli Manning era. The Giants win by the funniest score imaginable, by scoring 24 points and allowing only 2. Something I didn't reveal about the 2007 Giants was their opponents in the playoffs had a combined regular season record of 51-13. Want to know the record of their 2011 playoff opponents? 51-13 as well. No 16-0 teams to speak of here, but they do face a 15-1 Packers team in the divisional round. Although officiating controversy emerges on calls that favor Green Bay, like in 2007, the Giants stunned the Packers at Lambeau Field, and this time they win decisively by 3 possessions. In the NFC title at San Francisco, finally, Vegas is taking into account how serious of a team New York has, because the Giants are only 2-point road underdogs to a 49ers team that won 13 games. Eli puts up an admirable effort when you consider he was smacked around like a hysterical shipwrecked castaway for 6 sacks and some other brutal hits. Also want to bring up the special teams battle, which the Giants easily win after Lawrence Tynes once more kicks the Giants to a Super Bowl in overtime. In the Super Bowl, the script is the same. The Giants are underdogs to a dominant Patriots offense. It's a tight defensive game. Eli Manning has an all-time great throw to a less flashy name at the time in Mario Manningham, which leads to a go-ahead touchdown drive followed by one last defensive stop to win it all. As if it couldn't get more coincidental to 2007. In both games, outstanding pass rusher Justin Tuck sacked Brady twice. Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning have ring number 2. Eli gets his 2nd Super Bowl MVP. The Giants get their 4th Super Bowl ring, and they are the rare team to own property at one Patriot place for the foreseeable future. And those were the 10 worst Super Bowl teams of all time by point differential. What did we learn here? Well, half of these teams ended up winning the goddamn thing, which tells me the football gods aren't prejudiced and appreciate some good clean fun every now and then. They also tell us these 10 teams had their own twisted, fun-as-hell way of telling a story. Were these teams fraudulent? Maybe around the regular season they were, but the playoffs are a different beast. Teams can plan and adjust accordingly, and the season ends as soon as your team loses. So, a lot like March Madness, upsets can happen all the damn time, and they sure did when these 10 teams had a chance to play for the Vince Lombardi Trophy. Every team here had its own character, their own tale, no matter how ugly it can appear. There's some beauty there if you just look hard enough. Thanks for spending some time with me, and I'll see you next time.